Good morning, everybody, and I just want to welcome you back to Gearhead Daily. I am Eric, of course, the host here, and usually I try to bring you something fun, exciting, funny, whatever, or enraging in the car world. And today, I'm going to bring you something kind of enraging, which is the slow death rattle that is the NASCAR fan base and soon to be the NASCAR series itself. Now, full transparency, I was a huge NASCAR nerd. Okay, I watched it religiously every week for many years. I had my drivers, I watched my things, I did office pools, you name it. I was in it, and I had my group of guys that I like to watch, and I was really into it. And it died. It really died for me for a number of reasons. Now I started digging into some of the data, and today I want to talk to you about why I think that all started in 2007, as has been slowly getting crappier and crappier as time has gone on. Okay, so again, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, if you could, that would be really great. We're almost at 5,000. I got 50 or 60 over the weekend, so awesome. Thanks to everybody for doing that. But it'd be really helpful if you haven't subscribed to do that today. Would be really awesome and help me get to that 5,000 number. But let's jump in today. So as I was on my internet giver recently, there was these side-by-side photos of a Bristol race in like 2006 or something, just completely full brim to brim. I love Bristol. I still would like to go there someday just to see the carnage that is Bristol. And my favorite races when I used to watch were the road courses, when them boys would go lefty and righty. Okay, and they go the opposite way, and those were my favorite races. But I still love to see Bristol. And then they showed a comparison photo of 2018 or recently, and it was sparse. It was just completely gone. Okay, so just to show you my NASCAR nerddom, I have many signed cars, but I want to show you my piece de resistance. So to alleviate anybody's fears that I may not be a legit NASCAR fan. So this one, I have my favorite one is my signed Tony Stewart diecast car. So that's my prized possession, NASCAR memorabilia. And then for some reason, I had a friend who worked at a Napa store and got this is from the 90s, and it's a t-shirt, believe it or not. I remember when they used to like press t-shirts into shapes. So this is a t-shirt 2001. So that's date. I don't know why I kept it. I just did. But anyway, just to let you know, my NASCAR nerddom runs quite deep. So why do I think that it really declined in 2007? Well, I think here's what happened. In my experience, I'm not going to name names, Brian France, but I think they were at the height of what was going on. So, and what I've got here to show you is a graph of the height of NASCAR and the viewership of Daytona 500, which I think is indicative of the entire just kind of vibe of NASCAR as we go through it. And you can see very clear, distinct, just kind of crappy as it's going down. So I got into NASCAR in the late 90s, so I was kind of in this group here. I didn't care. People were like, well, that's redneck and blah blah blah. I'm like, it is, but it isn't. It's fun. It was exciting. The crashes were exciting. The drivers were exciting. The points battles were exciting. Guys banging into each other. It was kind of drama. It really was, and I really liked it. And I liked to watch the cars go around and see the technology piece of it. I really liked when they would do the cutaway cars and they show you how it worked. I don't know. I just thought it was really fascinating on a bunch of different levels. Right? You could really get into it on many levels, whether you like the drivers and the drama, whether you like the crashes and the wrecks, that was a thing, right? Or whether you were really into the technical part of it and like how they were driving it and that sort of thing and the technology that went into it. I was kind of fascinated by all of it. And of course in 2001, Dale passed away, so that kind of rose it a little bit. Small dip here. I think people were a little frustrated with the whole Dale passing away and how they handled it and that sort of thing. So I think they lost a little bit, but they slowly got their viewership back. In 2006, that was the peak. Okay, that was the peak. So what happened in 2007? Okay, there was a rule change. And here's going to be the entire theme of my speech is they completely ignored their core base. They thought that no matter what they did, the core audience would stay, and why don't we just, keep, trying to get new audiences, when in reality they just alienated the ones that were your staunch, I'm going to go to NASCAR races, I don't care who thinks I'm a redneck and thinks I'm dumb, mentality. That was the mentality at the time. So they changed it to get a new audience. I don't know if they were going for a more posh audience or trying to emulate themselves after F1 or something, but it's not the audience. They completely alienated them, and the numbers don't lie. So what happened in 2007? They change. I'm gonna let this reload here. So changes in the point system. That's what happened in 2007. Okay, and why did you do that? So wins become more important now. Okay. You get more points, and they started changing it. This is the slow decline, okay? So they started changing it. And do you remember the car of tomorrow? They brought that out. Okay, anybody remember this abomination that they got? They had it had a wing on it. It had this big front chin spoiler. It was a huge departure from what everybody was used to, and they didn't kind of slowly do it over time. What they did was they just kind of, boom, here you go, car of tomorrow. Notice the car of tomorrow's not here anymore because people hated it. It was stupid. And I know there were a couple reasons why they did it. At least publicly what they said was the reason they're doing this is for safety, stability of the cars, safety of the drivers, and a more stable car. Okay, sure. Fine, I get that. And drivers were saying that the old car wasn't as stable and, therefore. But I think this was the beginning of changes that were alienated their constituents, the people who actually went and bought tickets and everything like that. And I've heard a criticism, well, tickets are so expensive. Tickets have always been expensive. Go to any NASCAR race in the mid-2000s, 2006, 7, 8, somewhere in there, and the week leading up to any race, the parking lot was full of trailers and caravans. I mean, just absolutely full. And it was a week-long party. That's what people did. So the money really wasn't the issue. And you can say, oh, well, if we look at the graph, you can see, 2008 was when, the whole crash happened, the political thing. But look, it had already started in 2006. And that's when, we were high on our hog with financial stuff. So you can say that was the issue, but look at the dip here in 2014. I'll get to that in a second. But I think that 2007 was really the beginning of it. They changed the point system. It added complexity to it, and people didn't like that. People didn't like complexity. They were kind of used to the way things were going. And my opinion is, hey, you got a good thing going here. Why change it? It was going so well. Why make changes when you are you've got a 19-point share in TV viewership. That's huge, okay? Especially for motorsport in the United States. We're not as big on our motorsports such as Europe. But here we go. So we go back and we'll look at this kind of graph here for a second, and you'll see kind of there's a resurgence in 13, and I think that I'm not sure exactly why that happened in 13, but you see this huge drop from 13 to 14. So here you go. What happened in 13 to 14? They made another drastic change to the point system and made it more complex. Okay? They just added complexity to it. People can't really follow. There's a lot of driver changes now. Usually, for a while, drivers like, Dale and Jimmy and, Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart and everything, they would drive with one number, and they would drive with one team, and they had one sponsor for a couple of years. They had several year deals. Now, in the, kind of, boom for cash grab or whatever, and everybody trying to win race and everything, there's a lot of shuffling going on between drivers. And I don't have it in front of me, but if you look at the driver changes, every year the list keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger because drivers are changing, teams are changing drivers, they're changing numbers. That whole deal, I don't know if you remember, it was mid 2000s. I want to say it's kind of right around this 6-7 time where Dale went over to left DEI, and that all drama was going on, which I'm sure was really good for ratings actually, because nobody wanted to see Carrie. Nobody wanted to see her win that battle, and Dale Jr. ended up winning the battle in the end. But the other reason is you're starting to lose big drivers at this point too. So not only are you adding complexity, but you're losing big names. You lost Tony Stewart, you lost Dale Earnhardt due to injury, and you lost Jeff Gordon just due to retirement. And boom, just gone, right? Those are your kind of your big folks. And they started doing gimmicks, and that was the issue. Here's the era of the gimmick. It started in 2007. Change the points, car of tomorrow, and then they started doing this stuff with the points, which really kind of added to this just junk system where nobody could follow it. And I don't know if you watched a NASCAR race in the past, 5 or 6 years. But they've had to bring up the point system like 15 different times during a race because it's hard to follow. So you've added complexity to it where there wasn't complexity before. Your audience could follow and generally liked the product you had. Now suddenly your product is too complex, has too many gimmicks, and it's not going well. So here's what happens, right? So what does NASCAR do? Right around here, 2013, remember the point system? They go, oh, well, okay, we'll see how it goes. So, and they kind of came back a little bit, probably had some marketing things. So what do? They double down on complexity and add the most dumb thing they could have ever done, which was stage points. Now we're going to do stages. What? Why? This is dumb. Their assumption is that the average NASCAR fan, this is conjecture, the average NASCAR fan's attention span was so short that they could only do like 20, 30 at a time. And now you've doubled down on complexity. Not only do you have playoffs, okay, which I thought could have been a fun idea, because at the end I see what you're going for, because what was happening was you'd get a driver and about, out of the, 30, 40 races, you would, about 5 races to go, it was pretty obvious who was going to win. They were up by several hundred points or something like that, and barring any major incidents, they were going to win. And I think what NASCAR tried to do was they added this playoff thing so that people couldn't, it would start over. And I thought that was kind of interesting, and it kind of could have worked, but honestly, in the end, didn't work because that just alienated all other 33 drivers from the top 10 the last 5 races or something. It just alienated those guys and completely made them 100% irrelevant, which it didn't make sense because now all those 33 guys, which they went from 43 to 40, by the way, drivers. That was another issue. Minor, but it was one of those things. And what they did was all those 33 drivers now avoided all the top 10, because now they were like, oh, well, I can't, I don't want to get in those guys' way because they're racing for points. But the rest of them, it makes no sense. I understand the duel at Daytona. Totally cool. That makes sense. But don't do it for the entire flippin' series, guys. So they doubled down. And what happened? Now you've doubled down in 2016-17, and now you're at your lowest rating possible, and it's completely crap. Okay, so I found an article about where there's some real live people who did an interview here with USA Today, and what they say essentially, USA Today's worst website ever. I absolutely cannot stand this. Slowest. Okay, anyway, here's what they say. Okay, once it'll actually load. Cost of the trip. Basically, people are saying cost of the trip, not the issue. Okay? They would go all the time. Well, it's not money. It's not a money thing. Here's what it is right here. NASCAR competition-related decisions and constant rule changes hurt the credibility and turned off their traditional fans. You lost your core audience. And now they don't give a crap. So it's gone. You've completely ruined it because you've alienated in this kind of vain attempt to grab some other audience that you think may or may not be there or interested. So I'm not sure what demographic they were going for, but they sure as hell didn't get it. Okay. The other thing is their experience changed, right? The stage is gone. Multiple vendors are gone. They point that somebody's health insurance, but to be honest with you, if it's your thing, you're going to figure out a way to do it. Okay. This couple said they didn't like the way the points chase was changed. Putting Jeff Gordon into the playoff. Okay, so they didn't like their drive. They didn't like the driver that happened. But again, that goes back to the rule change piece that I was talking about earlier. They added complexity where complexity wasn't needed. Okay, so In the end, how do we fix NASCAR? That's a great question. I would like to see a return to kind of, for lack of a better phrase, kind of the good old boy way of doing things, which is not good old boy in the political sense, but in the older way of doing things. Go back to the old point system. Allow guys to bump into each other and have some rivalries. Right now, I mean, look at all the drivers that are on there. There's no good drivers that people can go after. Jimmy Johnson is about as vanilla as milquetoast, and Kyle Busch, who everybody's like, oh my god, he's the bad boy of NASCAR. He's just not likable. Even as a villain, he's not likable. I mean, there's a lot of parallels here between like WWE and and NASCAR. I think you can draw those parallels, but in the end, nobody likes Kyle Busch. He's just kind of a jerk, and not even like in a good villain sort of way, like Dale Sr. was. He was the intimidator, but he had that little smile that made everybody kind of like him at the end, like they're rooting for the bad guy. Here, nobody's rooting for the bad guy because he's a jerk. There's no good characters. There's no good drama. All of them are kind of brought up in this media savvy, gotta be clean and polished and do all that sort of junk, and you've lost the flavor, in my opinion. You've completely lost anything salient that was good in NASCAR, and this comes from a huge fan of NASCAR when I'm not anymore. I've gone to other things, WEC, F1, that I'm more interested in those sorts of things. And I don't even follow NASCAR anymore because you killed it. You honestly killed it. So I'd like to see the old way come back. Let guys have some personality, have a little bit of fun with it, beating and banging. You know what? I enjoy the pit crew brawls sometimes once in a while. I mean, who doesn't remember guys jumping out of cars and throwing helmets at each other and stuff? I mean, there's drama in that. Okay, is it professional? No, but let's be honest. What we're dealing with here. We're dealing with guys racing around with cars. Okay, so how do you fix it? I think you go back to a very much more simple way of doing things. I think you allow guys to kind of have personalities, and I think you allow some form of beating and banging when it comes to racing, train and paint, kind of the Days of Thunder sort of ways of doing things. Bring back a little showmanship. It's gone, in my opinion. So I think they've tried too many gimmicks. Get rid of all the gimmicks. That's dumb. You need to get rid of those. And go back to what you used to be. So quit trying to grab some mythical audience that's not out there. So anyway, I could go on for decades about this, but what do you think? Put it in the comments. Am I spot on? Am I wrong? Am I not wrong? I don't know. What do you think? Let me know. And thanks a lot. Appreciate it. And if you haven't done it, subscribe, and check you guys later.